show. Author's Corner, she asked about the books they wrote. And she interviewed the authors on the books they wrote.
What a pleasure to welcome Clive Matson to the show. He joins us. He's in our virtual green room here on Author's Corner on America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney. His book, Hello, Paradise, Paradise Goodbye. His career as a poet, you just got to think about this, and it blows my mind, I have to say. Among the beats, think about that. Think of Manhattan, actually the Lower East Side. Think of the 60s. Think of being mentored and influenced by Allen Ginsberg. Wow, are you kidding me? And that's just the beginning of the story. So, Clive, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It's quite a life. I've had a really good time and expect to continue.
You have had quite a life. It's interesting. You went to the University of Chicago, and that was fortuitous in a way because of the people you met. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's totally fortuitous. I had no idea what was going on. I'm 17, and University of Chicago has a phase-out test they give all the new students to see what level of class to introduce you to. And I was in an advanced literature class, and I sat in the back row where other kids from the country were. I grew up on an avocado ranch, and we were reading Milton's Paradise Lost. And he asked the question, why did Milton write this book? I raised my hand, and he had noticed I hadn't raised my hand in 2 months. And he called on me, and I said, well, life is this constant battle between good and evil, and he was laying out the groundwork for us. And he said, well, that's a good answer, but it's not the answer I'm looking for. And so that was very generous of him. He said, well, the answer he was looking for was that Milton had a quarrel with the King of England, and he wanted to set the record straight. And that's why Satan in Milton's Paradise Lost is an attractive figure, because it was the author, it was Milton.
Wow. And, you mentioned there, you zipped in about growing up on the avocado ranch, and you actually went back to that ranch, didn't you?
Yes, I dropped out after a year at the University of Chicago. But in the meantime, I was playing table tennis in the basement of the dorm, and I got friends with a guy who knew what was going on in the literary world, and we would talk, and he said, you've got to come to this reading at Gate of Horn. This is the spring of 1959. And it was Irving Rosenthal reading the current issue of the Chicago Review, which had gotten thrown off campus because Irving had to clear what he was doing with the administration, and they said had to show the administration what he was doing with Chicago Review. He was the editor, and they looked at it, and of course Ginsberg was there, and Ginsberg had done what he did all along. If you like my work and you want to print mine, then you've got to print my friends. So the whole issue was Beat Generation writers, Gregory Corso, Michael McClure, Diane di Prima, and Irving said to the administration, oh yes, I can do it, and he took it off campus. And it became the first issue of Big Table. And my ping pong playing friend, Elliot, knew all about this. Of course, I knew nothing about it. And he said, you got to come to this reading, and I went, and it was quite marvelous. They were doing a poetry nothing like what we were studying in the advanced literature courses. It was direct, it was honest, you could understand every word, and there was a stream of rebelliousness too. And I loved it. I could feel it was an event.
And now when you look back, it's such a piece of history that where you were, the time you were, and just the mentorship that you got. Did that encourage you to continue to write the way you were writing?
Yes, well, I really got the encouragement later from them. It was almost as though they followed me around. I met a lady later on after I dropped out, who wanted to tour Europe and had the money to do it. And she took me around Europe. But to get there, I hitchhiked to New York and heard that you could get jobs on freighters in Montreal pretty easily and get your passage. So I hitchhiked to Montreal, but a guy picked me up outside Woodstock who happened to be Ed Doran's brother-in-law. And he said, you should stay with me a couple of days. All the beats are reading on the Lower East Side. So I stayed with him and he took me to that reading. And how fortuitous was that? And I met Ginsberg and di Prima and John Wieners and a whole host of the beats and got their phone numbers and vowed to phone them up when I got back from Europe, which I did. And I stayed with Irving for a while and then found an apartment on the Lower East Side and made my home there for about 10 years. So
wow,
that's when I got to know Ginsberg pretty well. But I found the real examples of writing, it wasn't Ginsberg so much. Ginsberg behaved like all the young poets were like his kids for him to bring along and wise up to the world. And we would take our questions to him, like, where do I end a line? And he said, end it with your breath. It's like he had been studying. He'd heard Charles Olson talk about breath, and he was passing that on to us. So that was pretty interesting. But I liked John Wieners' writing and Michael McClure's writing. And those were the people that I really followed. It's like their depth of honesty and their ability to be vulnerable and real in their own writing made them very appealing.
And from everything that you've learned, what you learned during those early years, and of course you became a writing teacher, creative writing, and won all kinds of awards, by the way, for being just an incredible teacher. And you've won a lot of poetry awards too. But for you, did that make you want to pass this on? Did that want to make you work with other minds and see where you could help or where people would take you?
Yes, it really did. And I didn't learn it directly from them, but after I admired their writing so much, I wanted my students to write like them. And after a while writing, after a while teaching, I taught for University of California Extension for a while, a beginning writing class. And I could see that people would get in touch with their passion and let the passion guide them. And that's when they wrote well. And I felt like that's what the beats were doing. So that became the foundation of how I taught, was get hold of your passion, doesn't matter what it is, and get into it, and it will tell you how to write your piece.
That's brilliant advice. So Hello Paradise, Paradise Goodbye, again in the awards category, has won awards. And this is a long poem. And you actually premiered it, I want to say, I read back in 2017 in Paris. What was that like?
Oh, that was fabulous. And I had a cellist who I knew earlier came over and did cello accompaniment to the piece. And we didn't premiere the whole poem. We did 20 minutes of it, a couple of sections from it, including one about potato chip, which was my favorite. And she was marvelous, and I really, really loved doing it.
When people read this, what do you hope they take away, Clive?
Well, it's like an understanding of how they feel, what's happening to the planet, to the climate, and along the same way that our cultures are decaying and having a lot of trouble. So what I did was I wrote a dedication when I saw people kind of struggling what it was about. I said, this book is dedicated to the many people who've heard rumblings of these issues and have the courage to explore what their hearts are saying.
Wow, that's absolutely beautiful. And, I think about your life and I think about what you've done with words. What satisfies you personally the most?
Oh my God, what a good question. I think right now there's a sort of anxiety and fear going through the culture at all levels, and I'd like to be able to capture that in some words and bring us together. It's like, okay, we're all feeling something like this, and our problem is, what do we do with it now? So it's that level of honesty and vulnerability that I felt in the beats that I'd like to explore now in this time.
Yeah, well, perfect place to end this. Let me tell everybody, you can get Hello Paradise, Paradise Goodbye. You can get that on Amazon or wherever great books are sold. You definitely have such passion, and it was wonderful to speak with you, Clive. Thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Kate. I've really enjoyed it.